Keep your feet. We're gonna stand up. Ron's gonna lead us in the way.
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Appreciate everyone being here this evening for this special meeting. And before I get the approval of the agenda, I'm going to move the action items up to the front so that there's any there won't be a long debate if there's anyone here with those two items. Feel free to go if they want to after that. Right? Any objection to the chair doing that? Okay. With the moving of the action items to the after the approval of the agenda, would accept the motion.
So moved.
Second. Motion's been moved and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. I ask you to declare the motion adopted. Okay, the first item is 4.1. I think maybe you were in on this. Are you in on this too?
I'm here to answer any questions you might have on it,
Okay.
yes. If that-
Okay, so action 4.1 is the discussion of basically the recommendation to advertise the HVAC projects that you mentioned last time out for competitive bids as required by the West Virginia Code. You see listed there 1859A for it. Basically to present them as an energy savings contract, and those projects are HVAC renovations and upgrades to Back Valley, Burke Street, Hibbsville High, Martinsburg High, Musselman Middle, Tomahawk Intermediate, and Winchester Avenue. And there already has been a scope of work designed and basically approved, I guess we'll say, by McKinley Architecture. And then also as part of this energy bid, restroom renovations at Burke Street Elementary and Winchester Avenue. And then lastly, a window replacement at Burke Street Elementary. So we are seeking approval tonight for basically to be able to advertise those specific projects housed under the energy savings contract.
Are there any questions over?
I have a question.
Go right ahead.
What's the extent of the bid? The deadline?
Did not establish a deadline. We are going to meet with McKinley. They're going to be on site this Wednesday. And at that time, they're going to work with us in developing the RFQ for these projects. And so at that time, we'll have the timeline and we'll send that out.
Further questions?
Is there the ability, and I can send this to you as far as if you're looking for some sort of example, the ability when we're sending out for bid, that we can have a description of the item as well as in the quantity of what is needed, and then what it is priced per item so that we can have a better understanding of what each looks like?
Yes, what we'll do is, as you see each of these listed, we'll price each project per school. So you
Okay.
can see, you know, HVAC renovation, Back Valley, here's the quote.
Okay,
So yes, we can break that down. Is that what you mean? Like per
well,
school?
I know when we were talking about the intercom system. One of the schools, we were trying to figure out how much the quantity was of like the intercoms and stuff, which just said intercoms and then a price. We didn't actually have an idea of what the amount was within that price. So that's what I'm looking for, and I know that that's gonna be a little bit hard when it comes to like piping and stuff like that. But when it comes to certain things like toilets and, you know, sinks and the fixtures and the mirrors and, you know, those sorts of things, so we can kind of get an idea of what that looks like.
Sure, yeah,
That would be
Yes.
really great,
yeah, we'll get a breakdown as best we can.
as best we can, yeah, I mean, you know,
Absolutely.
I think that question arose because we got that change order. Didn't we get a change?
Yes.
order?
I think that was the one, yes, and it wasn't real specific as to the breakdown, it was like, hey, here's the total amount.
Yeah. exactly.
So yeah, we'll get a breakdown on this, we can do that.
Further questions? Mr. Stevens, would you like to say anything about this?
Really, we've gone through a series of investigative, just making sure that we're following the right procedure by the state, and we are following the policy that's laid out. You know, I think that this is just one of the steps that we need to take for our HVAC systems as part of our bond projects.
What's the amount of money we're talking about here?
Well,
Should we say that while we're bidding?
Probably should. You know, those projects are, there's a budget set aside for each of those projects, and you know, what we think and what we would like to see. I think it would be safe to say it's well into the billions that we're referring to, if that's what you were hitting at.
Okay, further discussion. Motion on, oh, go ahead, Mr.
So did we, I know, did we table this to this meeting, so we basically straighten all that out? The
Yes,
concerns are all good, okay?
that is correct.
So what we were looking at before, just to clarify. There were 3 or 4 ways that different people thought these could be handled. And we said, you know, all these different opinions, we gotta figure out which is the acceptable way to do this. So we pulled back, we looked at what the procedures were based on policy, and the numbers escaping me right now. We contacted our legal guidance on, you know, both our current legal guidance that's here this evening with us, but also our bond counsel, just to make sure, because these were bond projects, that there wasn't a different set of rules or regulations that we could follow. You know, we investigated purchasing co-ops, we looked at ESCO contracts, we looked at new contracts versus old contracts. Can this be considered as part of the old, you know, and basically after we got answers to all of that from multiple legal counsels, this is the route that both of those said, independent of each other, actually.
I just had a concern if, did someone question the procedure?
I'm assuming that it was questioned because it wasn't really sent out to a bid. So then we had to do what Ron just mentioned. We had to make sure, all right, what is the proper way to make sure we're doing this legally? So instead of just moving
Section
forward with a company that we didn't do any investigative work for, presenting that the appropriate.
Further questions? Discussion, we need a motion on item 4.1. So, Mr. Martin moves, second by Mr. Wright. Any amendments to the motion? Any further debate on the motion? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it, motion adopted. Okay, next one.
Next one, 4.2, is the discussion of possible action on a change order for modular classroom. This goes back to Tomahawk Intermediate School. This is a sketch of what the portable modular classroom will look like. But Tomahawk is to have a 10 classroom addition. And during the original discussions on where that addition would be located, it would basically need to have the existing portable at Tomahawk removed so that the addition could go to that location. In order for that to happen, we had to move those kids to a temporary portable, which is this one that you see here. However, the discussion has changed since then. At Tomahawk Intermediate, we're going to be able to do 10 classroom additions still as planned, but 5 classrooms off of one of the wings, which will then allow us to move the kids in the current portable to that location, then remove that portable and put the other 5 classrooms. So because of that scenario, it wasn't necessary to send this modular classroom that you'll see the drawing here to Tomahawk. Instead, it's gonna go directly to Bunker Hill Elementary. At Tomahawk, it was gonna be a temporary setup, and then once complete, then we were gonna move it to Bunker Hill anyway. So, the change is, we're sending it directly to Bunker Hill, however, we're not quite ready for it at Bunker Hill because all the site work was done at Tomahawk. So the portable or modular classroom needs to be delivered during this month of December. And so it couldn't stay on the lot any longer at Fox Modular. So we're going to have to temporarily set it up at Bunker Hill while we're getting the site ready for its final placement. In order to temporarily set it up, you can't just pull them in and park them there. They have to be leveled and put, close together so that you can't have vandalism going on and that sort of thing. So that's the added expense that you see here. It's $11,284 to temporarily set that module up on site at Bunker Hill so that we can then get the site ready. So that's the change order.
For clarification, not temporarily set up to use.
Not to use. It's just gonna be staged there while we get the site ready, and then we will set it in place for its final placement to actually be used. So the change order is the expense to have it temporarily staged, which requires the company has to come out, they have to put basically concrete block underneath of it to support it, but everything has to be leveled, and in order for it to not compromise the structural integrity of it while it's sitting there waiting for about 3 months before we get the site ready. So we couldn't keep it on their lot any longer because December was the deadline, and it's December, so it's being delivered as we speak. If you drive by Bunker Hill, there's a few pieces sitting there. It comes in 9 different sections, and they're gonna finish delivering it throughout this week. Hopefully, toward the end of the week, we can get it set up so that it's temporarily staged there. So the approval is for $11,284 to do that temporary setup.
Any questions?
Yeah.
So we're gonna pay them 11,200 to temporarily set it up. And we'll
Yeah.
have to pay them again to haul it to Tomahawk and set it up.
It's not going to Tomahawk. Tomahawk is where it was going to go, and if it was going to Tomahawk, there would be no change order. We were gonna set it right where it goes. So
Let's set it right where it goes.
we were going to at Tomahawk,
Yes,
but instead it's going to Bunker Hill. So we're setting it off in a field temporarily. Because the actual location where we're gonna place it, there are 2 existing portables there now that need to be removed. And so we have to remove those, install sewer, water, electric, all of these sorts of things. Plus, we have to level that site with shale and footers. And so it's gonna temporarily be staged there for this price, basically. And then once everything is ready, then we're gonna move it to that same Bunker Hill location to its permanent dwelling place.
We were extremely lucky, extremely fortunate to find this portable that we were gonna be able to use in 2 different locations. When we found it, we were gonna be able to use it for a couple of years at Tomahawk and then be able to transfer it to Bunker Hill to alleviate the issues that we have there with some portables that are becoming, that we will no longer be able to use. When we move them, we're gonna be removing them permanently. What this does, this is a significant savings over time. It's gonna be a cost for us to invest a little bit now, but instead of waiting for 2 years to be able to move it, we're gonna be able to set it close to the site down there and then be able to get it set up to start next school year with it, so.
Other questions?
So I have just a real quick question on this one. So I'm looking at the floor plan here. I had correspondence with Mr. Burton prior to he was assuming his previous role.
Okay,
And he had let me know, because I had concerns about there being only 1 window in the interior classrooms. And he had told me that he had requested the company to install a 2nd window in those interior classrooms. Do you know if there's gonna be just 1 or if there's gonna be 2? Because if I'm looking at the floor plan, it only looks like there's 1.
I believe there's just one, because that is the floor plan that I received last week. So I can double check on that,
Okay,
cause it's possible that they just sent me the original floor plan,
sure,
but I can find out for sure and see if there are additional windows.
okay,
This wing will house 200 students, with 25 to the classroom. Wow. One of the things that, in general, that I find amazing in this process is portables are deemed to be second-class places. We'd rather have bricks and mortar buildings rather than portables. But, and the second thing is, instructional time is very important. We don't want to waste time. And in our building program, we incorporate small bathrooms for students. For example, in Orchard View, we have a wing that contains about over 300 students. And for the gentlemen, we have 4 facilities for them, and the girls likewise number. So there you have bottlenecks in instruction. Everybody thinks I'm into some sort of potty jokes here. I'm not. I look at this portable here and I see that they have, if I'm counting them correctly, 7 facilities for the gentlemen and 7 for the ladies. And so here we have an undesirable environment with a greater awareness. If you go over to Rosemont, they only have 4 classrooms. And I think they have 10 per gender facilities. It's important that we're building buildings now, and we already have existing buildings of over 100 years old, and we'll soon have 8 of them, I believe, in the next couple of years.
I think so.
We are building buildings now that are subpar and we're wasting time on instruction by making kids wait in line to use a limited number of facilities. Compound that with the number of sinks. I remember the previous superintendent used to make a big deal out of washing your hands. I never called him out on it. But if you went over to some of these newer schools we have, they only have 2 sinks per hallway. And if the kids had done what he was sitting there advocating, we would have had kids going to school in the morning, standing in line to wait their turn to wash their hand, and then going home because we only had 2 sinks per 300 plus kids. So I'm just pointing out, in general, we have to put more value on instructional time by building things that do not impede instruction. And I've been saying this for years, and people have just been kind of smiling and laughing, but you build a building that's going to last 100 years and put a subtotal number of toilets in that school. Over the course of that 100 years, what's the equivalent of basic on all those children going through there? We have to sit down and start investing in things. This because the SBA says its minimal number is acceptable. We have to raise their standards because our test scores do not reflect a positive accomplishment in instruction. And we have to look at every angle. Ms. Long has advocated for the in-school suspension places and things like that. So I am dead serious. When we come in here and put portable classrooms up, which have a more conducive arrangement for instruction to occur, we have to sit there and transfer those models to our permanent buildings. And I'm just using this opening to once again reiterate that need. But getting back to the topic, I need a motion. Go ahead, Mr. Ray.
I have another question.
Okay.
Mine is based, going back to, you said Tomahawk or?
Tomahawk is where that was originally gonna go.
Right. But so are there now no concerns with Tomahawk since it was going to go there and now we're just?
No, what changed was we were gonna do one all connected 10 classroom addition exactly located where their current portable is. So we would have to remove that portable to do that addition. And so all of those kids were gonna move into that portable.
Right.
But now, instead of doing that 110, we're gonna do a 5 classroom addition on one of the wings. And then move the kids to that location, and then do the other 5. So that eliminates the need for the temporary portable.
The other 5 addition.
Other 5 classroom, yes,
Okay. I still have portables on mine, I think.
yeah,
I guess that's what I was confused about, because I knew
Okay.
about the classroom additions, but I wasn't thinking that we were going to get rid of the portable, which is a great idea.
yeah, the portable's gonna be eliminated.
But my question is on the drawing, where the black, lines are, is that not windows or is that a door? Are they doors?
Which drawing is this? That, the one that I passed around?
Yeah, these are.
I don't know, I have to see what you're talking
Those are
about.
air conditioning.
Are those windows?
Those are windows, yes.
Yeah, well, then
And
there's
then
three
the-
windows in those.
So the ones that I'm looking at are the interior, not the exterior, not the 4 corners, but the interior, the
Yeah,
ones
the
that are literally
interior
right
ones.
next to the back.
I have to check to see if there's another
Right
window
here.
in there.
Right
Yeah, and
here.
I'm not sure. She's talking about where you see, like that projection there is an air conditioning unit.
Oh, okay, I wonder what.
So I don't know if there's another window in between that unit and that window, which is what I'm gonna check and see.
Well,
Yeah.
like this, like the ends, looks like there's 3 windows.
Yeah, there's 3 in the classrooms, yeah.
Yeah.
But it
But
appears as though
one
there's
in
only
the
one
Center.
in the sentence, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and my big concern back then was fire safety. If we have a fire somewhere and you've got only one exit out into the hallway and you've only got one teeny tiny window and you have 30 kids and a teacher and maybe an assistant, depending on what you're putting in, what kind of classroom you're putting in there, hello, you're gonna have it's gonna be a hard thing to push. And then the other thing, the only thing I would say is supposedly I was informed that this was gonna be part of the contract at no additional cost for that other window. Into those, one additional window into each of those 4 interior classrooms. I'm just telling you what I was told. If you can check into it, that'd be great.
I can check into it, yeah.
The only other question I was thinking of, while everybody else was asking questions and such, for parents and concerned community members. Out there, what is, can we say that the portables are secured?
The portables, you mean the temporary staging of the portable?
No,
Or you mean
secured as
the-
in security, there's, not, someone's gonna be able to gain access.
These portables will be replacing portables that are already located in the same location.
Okay.
And on one side of, there's a fence that runs the
Okay.
entire way. But I don't think it is entirely enclosed. I do think it's open
Are the exterior doors locked?
for the portable.
Yes,
Yes,
okay,
Yes.
that's okay,
yes.
so there is security in place.
Yes, and once this one is complete, then there'll be a badge swipe on the one door. Where the ramp is,
Yes.
that'll be the main entryway and it'll have a swipe.
Perfect.
Isn't that the same way the portable at Hedgesville Elementary works?
Oh, yes,
Swipe to get in.
yes,
On a smaller scale, I think there's only 4 rooms in that
I
one.
think so, yeah.
This is again, as I said before, I felt like we were very fortunate to be able to find this the way the circumstances and the need and it fit
Sure.
what we needed. And it is actually going to be able to help us at Bunker Hill with the growth that they have there earlier than we anticipated, which is a great thing. These are state of the art, new, updated facilities. And I think that they will last us a long time. As like I said, to be able to handle some of this growth that we have.
Yeah.
So,
We've had a lot.
thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the location of the
So moved.
4.2 the market?
Second,
Okay, the motion's been made by Ms. Law and second by Ms. Bauer. Any discussion, amendments? All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
I,
Opposed, nay. I spirit after I do have it, the motion adopted. While we're at this point, I'd like for Mr. Stevens to share with us his life today. Now that
Okay,
the school building started.
well, I think that we can, very interesting today. You can talk and sit down. You want Todd to sit down or you want to stand up for mine?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He was not. He was not. He was not. This was, very interesting. It was extremely humbling to be in an environment where there's 55 counties that have need, 27 counties that have expressed need, that have been down there to present the way that we presented. 19 of those counties were actually awarded, and they ranked them. The staff that was there ranked them in the order that they felt like the need was, and the first one listed was Berkeley County. So really feel good about the work that has been taking place. Give kudos to the board for pulling this together and working with the bond and putting together an appropriate ask of the SBA. I think that Mr. Tyson has picked up where Mr. Burton left off, and we were able to put together a really good presentation and talk to them. In a way that I don't know if they truly understand the need that's going on in Berkeley County, but I think that it opened their eyes. So that we were awarded the full amount of 25 million that we asked for. So we will receive a grant from the school building authority for $25 million. It will be paid out in multiple cycles. They'll have 3 different cycles, so our final amount will probably not be till 3 years. We get one this year, one next year, and then one next. And it really depends on what money they have available when it's time to give that. You're going to get $8.33 million, which I said, how are you going to give me a third? I don't know how we're going to figure that out. One's going to be a little bit more, 1 penny more, a dollar more than the others, but that's their plan. They did say that if there were projects that didn't get approved in other counties, or other counties couldn't utilize that money in a cycle, that they would be able to redistribute that to the counties that are working. And since ours is there, and ours is on a multi-cycle award, that it would be those counties on the multi-cycle would get that additional funding. So we'll see how that goes, but it was rewarding today. And it was important enough. The governor was there to talk to us, to all the counties that were awarded. In the past, there was between $50 and $55 million, most commonly distributed by the SBA. There was a period of time, I don't know how many years ago it was, where there was an influx of money where it was about twice that. And this was another one of those cycles where they awarded over $111 million today. So number of counties did not get fully awarded. But because our community stood behind us, because of the success of the bond, because of the organization that we've presented to them, ours was fully funded and ranked #1.
Normally we applaud students, but I'd like for us to stand and applaud you right now.
I'll applaud. We have a great team that pulled that whole thing together. And I tell you, I'm not sure we could have done it without the work of the whole team.
I'm not used to the staggered process, for them distributing them.
Well, they said that for larger projects, they have done it that way in the past. And it allows them to give out to multiple counties. And I'm sure that there's reasons why they want multiple counties to be able to say that they received some money. But bottom line is we're getting $25 million to put towards the projects that we have. Yeah, we'll figure out how to use it.
Okay. I know Ms. Bobo worked on it.
She did. I can't even go through the extensive list of all the people who pulled that together.
Yeah, and quite an accomplishment, and I know in August, people were noticing the impact there. But it was a important, very important needed thing. And one of the things that your predecessor did, I think was very good, was that he said, we've been trying to put building wire and duct tape on our buildings, our older buildings, and we just incorporated that into the bond. And that will free up, that'll make the buildings more efficient and last longer. We do have one school I think we want to knock down, and that's Jonestown. If I'm not mistaken. I mean, not Jonestown. Excuse me, Enwood. And
You mean
we're going,
demolish?
yeah, well, yeah, they made
We're
it
gonna raise it,
Yes.
raised,
we're gonna raise
You
it.
said knock down.
There will be a new facility on that site.
right, for the efficient use.
Yeah.
So that, I don't want that to go by, that the public thinks we're not gonna have to make some adjustments, but, and the other thing is, he's actually, he initiated the pre-K buildings, which will free up, 40 or 60 classrooms throughout the county, which will then allow
Yeah.
those schools, so this be like building another school on the secondary.
So to clarify, we are putting a new facility on the site at Enwood. We are raising the current building that is there to make room for a new building that's going to be there. We're going to be one of the first, if not the first, district in the state to actually build pre-K centers. We're going to have a couple of pre-K centers in the county. And where you got that 40 number from is when, even after we build these, we will still have 40 classrooms out there in our current buildings. We're going to put between 20 and 30 classrooms in these centers. But we will still have
Pre-K class.
pre-K classrooms out there. That's right.
I just learned.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, let's get back to the mentoring items. I want to recognize Ms. Ford for a letter that she sent us. We have to walk a very thin line here, balancing this, and I appreciate you being here to see if we behave.
I'll do my best.
And I will say that if anyone goes astray, it will probably be the chair. But I appreciate you being here tonight for to help. So, hey, our first item is the mobility brief. And at the last meeting, our instructional staff was at a training session.
We were at a principal conference.
Yes, and we had a pretty lengthy discussion in your absence, but we kept hitting walls where they said, we need you guys here to help us answer these questions. So how should we begin here? Do you have a suggestion?
How would you like us to begin?
Well, we felt that, I'm trying to remember the tenor of the meeting, but we were concerned about schools having turnovers, certain schools, at different times, not continuously, but in different schools. And we are concerned about the instructional impact upon those schools. We had to be careful about getting into the weeds off the rails about the leadership of those schools, because then we're talking about personalities, I believe. But we were concerned that when we felt that a school was going to have turnover, we saw that schools have turnover. And we are worried about, as a board, the impact of that turnover at schools. So we're just trying to say, well, we're reading the mercury in the thermometer here. Now, what's going to be the impact? So I'll begin letting the members ask any questions, and then we'll see how the discussion evolves. Go ahead.
I have a question I asked last meeting, and I think, Justin, you might answer this, but I had a question about did the in-school transfers if we went from first grade to second grade, is that part of this mobility? Yes, Lewis says, yeah, yeah. Well, I think that should not be.
No, it is not. Not in that rate? Not in that rate.
Well, that's not what the principals think, and when they see this,
We double checked that question that you had said last time, and it is not.
because I had some people tell me I didn't have that many people transfer on my building. So,
If they had questions, they could ask Mr. Kowalski, but he did double check those, did not include internal movement within a building.
okay.
Within a county, yes, not within a building, though, correct?
Yeah,
Okay,
but that's what they're thinking, that's affected their mobility rate, so.
Another question which came up is the permit subs. They left the school. Did they count?
Term subs are not included in this.
In mobility, but we do have permanent subs who quit working in a school, correct?
There's various reasons, yes.
For various reasons. And for clarification, we sorted out the discussion that they're saying that it's not always a negative thing for a transfer or a resignation. Some people have a spouse who gets a job elsewhere. The mobility rate also included retirements, which is a very positive thing for the system. We had, but then when you start looking at the school climate surveys, and you see particular schools with just red, and then you see the mobility rate is high, then that's a reflection of something negative going on in that building. When you're seeing, especially we appreciate people staying in the county, but we have to be concerned about the environment in that school, the learning environment, the cohesiveness of the staff, just the general atmosphere in the school, because we believe that has an impact on our students. And so we're just trying to find out what can be done without getting down saying school A is who's the principal of school A and what's the problem or something like that, because we can't do that out in the open here, I think. But we'll keep looking at you. But we just feel that we can't wait until the fall to see the threat was real and came to light. And that's what we're asking. Another question we had along Jackie's lines. I asked about the permit subs. I know we were getting letters about permit subs, but and okay, here's some question, and I'll ask this to council, but Dr. Schooley already answered it. In the spring, we get a long list of people who have been evaluated. And the superintendent recommends them, say they're a first year employee, then you recommend them for the second year. Or the third year. And then when they reach the third year, then they're granted tenure on the superintendent's recommendation.
But hold on, I don't know that every probationary contract is not recommended every year by the superintendent.
No, I know that.
So you're not gonna see one coming forward that the superintendent recommends.
Right.
It would only be if the superintendent did not recommend.
We wouldn't see the names of people not recommended on the list. Correct. And right, yeah, that's the way, because I've seen you all just, the name wasn't there, we had to ask. Is this an omission or, and it was a recommendation. My question is, the superintendent recommends somebody for one of those positions. And the board votes on the whole line. What if we say no to one of them? And I'll go one step further. Dr. Schooley said that employee who is recommended by the superintendent is entitled to an answer from us who voted no, why we voted no.
That's correct. Like any other personnel recommendation that's made to you, you have a whole list to approve, and if you want to pull one out and discuss that individually, you can do that. But those employees who would not be renewed by the board, or the recommendation would not be made to the board to renew their contract, would have a right to understand why that is not being made. Those renewals that you're talking about in the spring are called probationary non-renewals if someone doesn't get the recommendation, and they're for lack of need. So if I am a third grade teacher and I've been there for 2 years or 3 years, and I'm getting ready to have a permanent contract, unless you're eliminating my third grade classroom, we no longer need that extra third grade at that school, or no one's bumping me out, then you're not. If you vote no, it's not for lack of need, it's for something else. And that something else is obviously a disciplinary issue. And employees have the right to know before that even comes to the board for a non-renewal, you know, what they're doing right. If it's correctable behavior, they have the opportunity to improve, or should be given the opportunity to improve, just like a permanently employed teacher or employee. So it's a little bit of a misnomer when we think about, oh, they're probationary, we don't have to have them back. Not so. If we're not inviting someone back, we're not going to give them another contract, then we need to make sure procedurally that we followed the proper steps in not renewing them.
And
But
we, the board, is part of the procedural process. It's the administration.
It's the administration. You're either voting it up or voting it down as the board.
But you have to vote the whole list, you can't pull one vote, is that what you're saying?
No, you can, you could, if I'm on the list and you want to talk about me specifically, you can approve everybody else and you can pull me out and talk about me separately. But if you vote no to the recommendation to give another contract, that's where I think you'll have issues, because essentially you're firing that person. You're firing that person. It's not like you don't need them anymore. You've decided for some other reason that you get rid of them. And they have certain rights before they get to that.
Well, if you voted no and it was 2-3, it didn't pass. Is that employee still entitled to notification why you voted no?
Yes, what would happen in that instance, it would be like anybody else who's not renewed. They receive a letter that says your name wasn't on the list, and then they have the right to have a hearing in front of the board.
Well, but what I'm saying is, if their name would be on the list because it did pass. Just because-
She's saying if it was 3-2 to.
Yeah.
Oh, to approve,
Yeah.
then, no, then they wouldn't have a hearing before the board because it passed.
Well, in actuality, just like in the law in previous years, that should all be taken care of before it came to us. If there's an employee not doing their job, and they should be evaluated, put on an improvement plan, and then if it doesn't meet muster, it shouldn't come to us should not be approved by
Correct.
in workings. Correct,
That's correct.
which has happened.
Or if it's a permanent employee and they, aren't doing their job, they're put on an improvement plan. And if they don't improve, then it comes to you as a recommendation to terminate their contract.
Yes.
Further questions?
No, I've got a question. This is a wild scenario, but, say for instance that. Melissa were made with an employee that they're not doing their job, not doing well. We inform administration. Nothing is done. If there's no improvement plan, there's nothing. We keep getting reports. They're doing all these terrible things. Nothing's done because we find out, oh, it's a friend of somebody that's in administration, and there's no improvement plan. Then it comes to us to approve the person. And then we say no, or we want to say no. I mean, I'm not like.
It's a hypothetical,
Right.
It's a hypothetical.
definitely not this, nobody's told me anything. Nothing, nothing but hugging.
Well, I would say because of the protections for privacy for employees, that sometimes it does feel like people will come to you with problems about a particular person, you'll send it to the administration, and then you won't hear anything about it, and the person will say nothing's being done.
No, I mean, actually, we may ask the administration, hey.
Did you do something?
Take a look at this,
We find out,
yeah.
we find out there was no improvement plan, like there, nothing was done.
And in those situations, I think the board's recourse is to direct the superintendent to look into it, to investigate it, to make sure it doesn't happen again, because your employee is the superintendent, right, on that. I think a lot of times different tools are used in the toolbox to address employee performance, and sometimes it's a plan, sometimes it's a stern talking to, and sometimes those things don't happen. It's a process though before it comes to the board, but you're doing the right thing in that and saying go to the administration, and then holding the administration accountable.
Right, I just want to make sure it's nice and public.
Yes,
And hypothetical.
in a hypothetical.
Yeah, and that's why there's procedures for plans of improvement for both professional and service. They're there to use, and when they don't use them, then you don't have documentation, and then just like he said, well, we hear all these things, and then you get a list, and then the person's name's on the list to approve. So somebody's not doing that. That's just hypothetical.
In another county.
Yeah, in another county.
I heard in another county this happens.
Yeah, let me change the tone of this
Okay.
discussion. We have a school. It's Burkhart, Burke Street School. Very low mobility rate, and the scores are much higher than the other primary schools. And the climate survey is very positive. So we're talking about a school in particular. I'm friends with the principal. Everything. Why do they stand head and shoulders above the other schools?
I think there's a lot of things that play into that. And I don't want to get specific about that school, but there was a time that they did not. A lot of assistance from the state and a lot of other interventionists, and a lot of employees that were involved in that helped create that climate and that culture to improve. And also to help support those teachers that were there. But they weren't always there, it did, take some time to get to that point.
Right, but it's a inner city school.
It's a great school, absolutely.
It's an inner city school. It has a student mobility rate, probably. I didn't look at the student mobility rate, but they're it's a very successful
It is.
school.
It is.
And I just was wondering, well, if instead of looking at the negatives on this list, let's look at the positives. So I got out the climate surveys, I got out the test results, and I looked at this and I thought, well, what are they doing that maybe we should be doing elsewhere in our county? And doing that, and so I wanted to approach it that way.
Yeah.
Do you all? And this was a question I asked to Dr. Schooley at the last meeting. There's a cost when we have all this mobility of replacing people, interviewing people, recruiting people. And then when you lose a certified teacher at a school and replace them with a permanent sub, that's also, then you have all these mentors that we have coming in, checking and everything. So there's a cost when you have this mobility rate in schools that apparently are having problems. Now, the school board, so that was one question. Have you all ever looked at the actual cost of when replacing vacancies? Now, I know that we're fortunate that people who are unhappy in one school, and we're making the assumption they're unhappy, we hear a lot about it, it's been done it, but there's a cost, somewhere there's a vacancy that you have to replace, and we need to look at that cost. And then if we have an unqualified person replacing them, we need to look at the costs that we're investing in that person and monitoring that person, because there's people dropping in their classroom. President Hardesty said, I read somewhere, he was talking about school boards reacting to public criticism and everything. So back to our guest here tonight. I've been told by people in your office that we have to sit as a jury in these cases. So we're supposed to remain aloof from the things. But meanwhile, we're getting calls from parents, from employees about conditions over the years in different schools. So, but when you tell the public, look, I have to maintain my purity here because I may have to sit as a jury. That doesn't get it with our communities. And we have, and you earlier said, if the superintendent's not doing something, we as a board, as his boss, and he's our only employee, the 2,000 employees in the system, we only have one employee here. We can tell him to do something, but then in the hearing coming up, if there's a hearing, that can be brought out in a hearing, correct? Are we still qualified to sit as a jury?
You're not qualified to sit as a jury if you have told the superintendent to take a particular personnel action. You can tell the superintendent, I'm getting calls about school ABC, could you please investigate it? And when he does that, you can say, did you investigate it? And he can say yes. If you get the details of the investigation before a recommendation is brought to you, or if you direct the superintendent, I've been hearing things about school ABC, I want you to go out and I want you to fire the math teacher. Then when that recommendation comes to you, if you have done that, you will have already formed an opinion, you will have prejudged that. And the employee, if they're terminated, will take it to the grievance court and the courts, and in all likelihood, they'll be able to win and get their job back because they will have been able to show that he made the decision before they had the right to a hearing.
What if you're not necessarily directing the superintendent to fire that individual? Literally just, can you please investigate? Because because of the things that are reporting to us, are we then obligated to remove ourselves from any sort of grievance that would end up coming before us at, on the board?
I think if you get a parent complaint and you send it to the superintendent and say, take care of this, and that's all that you've been involved in, then you've not necessarily prejudged it. You have to question, have I formed an opinion, or am I using information that's not being brought to me in a disciplinary hearing to terminate this employee? So if mom told you a whole bunch of things that didn't come out and you have that in the back of your mind, then you may have prejudged it. If not, then you're okay to sit there because you've not gotten into it. You're there as the jury.
Let's say 3 or more of us board members are aware of a situation at a school, and there's a grievance that has been brought up to us, and that we are supposed to sit. In an ordinary case, we would sit for that grievance hearing. And we can't sit there for that hearing. Who then replaces us to hear it if all of us have been involved
Well,
in some capacity?
yeah, you all would just be involved if there's disciplinary action. So it used to be that the board was part of the grievance process,
Mhm.
but the board's no longer part of that. So your only role is if there's a recommendation for suspension,
Okay.
demotion, dismissal.
Okay.
Dr. Schooley, your memory is much better than mine. Have we admitted any questions that we had raised the last time that you think should be, with our attorney here to?
Nothing I can.
Free of cost. Okay, well, just speaking on behalf of the board, you all correct me if I'm wrong here. We're concerned, Mr. Stevens, when we see a school reaching out to us for help. And we're aware we have to keep our distance to a degree, but in the same thing, our community expects us to respond to the request. And so I've always told them, I've asked them, if they give me a letter, may I send this to the superintendent? I always ask their permission. And keep it in confidence, but when you look at some of the figures and see some of it, they're aware of the rumors. And people do leave the school in mass. And you look on the climate survey and you see all the red, or now we're doing the circle graphs, and see all the red. And I think there's another color to see more detrimental there. We don't want to wait till the fall to see the mobility rate. We want to keep the mobility rates as low as possible. Now, Dr. Schooley, and here was something that he said, most of the people who fill out the exit interviews do so because they're unable to live in this area with the low salaries. So it's because we have a lot of turnover and stuff. It's that I've also seen schools where people say, I'll stick by you as long as I can and afford to. But that's one of the big reasons people quit in Berkeley County is that. But if you have this atmosphere in the school, it's negative. It contributes to the exodus of people in that school. And we want to stop those situations. We want to try to hang on to every individual we can for the betterment of our children. And that's the reason why we had this discussion. And I know you're sensitive to it. You and I have talked about it, and I'll let you have the last word.
I'm gonna have.
Okay. You can have. I made a mistake, Jeff. Are there any other last words?
It said, "Well, you're really nice," and I was trying to.
More so than usual.
Yes. I wanted to, say though, regarding some of the mobility rates that, and just like Ms. Burkhart, spoke about, a particular school. But the schools that have 80, 90 kids versus a school that has 360 kids, there's quite a big difference in why the staff would leave. And so, I think we need to point that out, that some of our smaller schools, it was very much of a family atmosphere, and in many of our schools, it's like a family atmosphere. But when you have an excess number of students with not the adequate staff there, no fault of any of our own, that it makes a big difference. So I don't think you can point out one school versus another school. Now, Mr. Stevens.
Really, the only thing that I can say about this is the statistics you have in front of you are just that, they're statistics. And I think that we may run afoul of the statistics if we're trying to interpret why everybody on a particular list is leaving. I do agree that it is difficult in a school, in any school, whether there's 80 kids in it or 1,800 kids in it, if you have turnover. I can tell you as a former school leader that there were years where we had significant positions that we had to fill, and that's tough. I mean, not only are you trying to fill those positions, and you're trying to fill those positions with people that are going to be a part of a team and that are good with the students, good with the material, but you're trying to make sure that they're all certified. And so it is challenging, and the larger the school, the more challenging it is to fill more numbers. But it doesn't matter if 10% of a school with 80 kids in it, is missing, or 10% from a school with 1,800 kids in it, that 10% makes a difference at both of the schools. You know, I think that it goes without saying that there's going to be changeover. And when leadership changes, whether it's because they think the leader is good, bad, it's a man, it's a woman, they're mean, they're not mean, they're strict, they're not strict. People are going to align themselves with somebody different. And I don't necessarily think that every time somebody leaves, it's because they're unhappy with the school as much as the grass is greener at another school. And oftentimes we actually hear from people that, you know, they made that change, but they want to go back. And that happens as well. So, you know, I understand what you're getting at when you're talking about this, but it is a very complex thing. You know, and you know, not only are we talking about the pool of applicants for our teachers and our service personnel, and our bus drivers and our custodians and our cooks, we're also talking about that pool of applicants for our administrative staff and our principals and assistant principals. There's not a lot of people beating down the doors to be able to do these jobs, and when we can grow within ourselves and use our advisory groups and our still can't think of that name, Jim. But use our own, grow your own type of system here, and we know more about them. They know what to expect. Putting people in positions where they're educated about those positions, I think, will help make them stick longer and know what to expect and how to handle things. Some of these positions are more difficult than others too. I mean, they're just that, you know, if you look at this list, that I don't think you would have to be a rocket scientist to know that some of these positions are inherently going to be not simpler, that's not the right word, but less complicated than others.
I think we expressed our concerns and ready to move on.
And if you have concerns, please bring them to my attention so that I can intervene and provide assistance to the schools that need it.
Okay, we're gonna move 3.2 down to the bottom, because I think we have to go in executive session for that regarding the superintendent's contract. And I don't want to belabor the evening here, so let's move on to 3.3.
We put that there because Ms. Corey was here.
Oh,
That's a question.
okay.
On that.
Okay, well then let's
And catch 22.
do you wish us to discuss you in executive session or an open session?
Well, it depends on what you're gonna say. I can offer executive session until I.
Okay, I need a motion to go into executive
Sorry.
session to discuss the superintendent's future.
Second.
Okay, discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. We will retreat from here. You all keep your seats. We ask that Ms. come along.
I would make one request. We'll go into executive session here because I do have a number of staff that are staying extra tonight that we, you know, try to get our questions out there to Ms. Boyle so she can either answer them or get back to us. And then we can come back and revisit this further if you want to, so we can take
It will help here. Coming back into session at seven 15. We need a motion for that or anything?
Coming out of executive session.
Okay, we came out of executive session, we will not have any votes at this point, the discussion of the superintendent's contract will be ongoing. The next item on our, agenda is discussion of the excess levy to be placed on the ballot, in order for, May 14th, and Mr. Buck, the chair recommends.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy, and Ford and Superintendent Stevens. So you might be asking yourself why we're talking about the 25 levy today, with the change in the legislature. Last year, I think it was last year, you can only hold special, school levies cannot be held with a special election, or has to be held with the primary general election. For us, that'd be May or November of 24. Those are the, last days before our levy runs out in June of 25. So with that, you know, what is the levy? What is the school excess levy? Well, we have the regular school current levy, we have school bonds, and we have school excess. Obviously, the school bond we just passed 22 was for buildings. The school excess levy is for other operational expenses that for the needs of the county. For us, you know, 73% of our expenses are personnel. We also have tax bills in there, instructional materials, costs associated with increased enrollment, upkeep and maintenance of our facility. The board member Murphy mentioned earlier, we have quite a few buildings that will be over 100 years old. And then, of course, we also support various community organizations. So why do we need to talk to you about it? Because the board must pass an order or resolution identifying that we need to run a school excess levy, and then what needs to be in that school excess levy. The school excess levy is different than a county level, but we need 50% plus one vote to pass, and we just need a majority to pass the school excess levy. And the school excess levy can be up to 5 years, or current levy is a 5-year levy. We passed it in 20, and it will end in 30 or 25. So what needs to be in the resolution when we pass it? This is straight from the code, West Virginia Code 11-8-16. It has to consist of what's the purpose of additional funds, and it's again, like I mentioned previously. We break those down into 5 categories, and we'll talk about those later. I have a schedule for that. The total amount needed when we ran it in 2020 is 31.6 million, and then we'll talk about where we are today towards the end of the presentation. And then also included in the resolution is what the assessed values will be. And again, we get that data from the county assessor's office each year in March as we prepare our current levy and our bond and our school excess levy each year. And then again, the last item is it can be up to 5 years, and we do run our bond, our school excess levy 1 to 5 years. So this schedule here is straight from the state auditor's website. Every county's rates are listed there. This includes not only the state, the county, but also our school. And what we're talking about is the very last item, the school excess levy. And again, it breaks down the rates by class. There's 4 classes in the state, in the county that we assess taxes on. So the rates currently are twofold. So what this slide here represents is the maximum school rates allowed by code. And then on the next column is the Berkeley County rate. So you can see our rates in Berkeley County is less than what the maximum is allowable at the state level. We're approximately 98% of what's allowable to be charged. So just to review, class 1 is no longer in existence, that it's not a category anymore that is taxed. Class 2 is your personal residential home. Class 3 and 4 is your commercial property, as well as your personal property, which would be your vehicles. And we're not going to talk about that because that law has changed now, where personal property tax on your vehicle is reimbursed through your tax return process now.
When can we ask some questions?
Anytime you want.
These roads will change, will they change the citizens tax? Are they the same schedule that we had last time?
Yes, this is the same schedule we've had. I can't tell you how long it's going back up before my time. This has been the same rate. We've been at 98% for quite some time. How far back it goes, I'm not sure.
So in essence, when the levy was renewed, their tax.
Well, that's part of the discussion tonight, that we have an option to do anything the board chooses with the rate. I'm just explaining where we are today and what it would look like if we went to 100%. For example, at the rate we're at now, from today's assessed values in the county, we bring in about $45.1 million. If we were able, we're looking at the maximum rate of max this county could bring in from the school access levy would be 46 million. It's about a $900,000 swing between the 98 and 100%.
Just for clarification. The item on this agenda will not be an action item. We're not gonna make any decisions tonight.
Right, this is just information.
Right,
Yeah, just information, so we have an idea, because we are, again, we're 5 months away from the next primary election, and so we do have some steps that we need to do as a board to get to that point in a timely manner to notify the county clerk's office, but we also need to discuss where we are today and what it could look like.
Well, that's why I'm asking questions.
so our goal tonight is to tell you what we have in place right now. What, what it looks like right now, to let you know what it would look like if we move forward with this rate, and then to discuss the option of 100%, correct? The allowable.
So this one, I know it's hard to see on the screen, that's why each of you have a copy of it in front of you. This kind of identifies where we are with our current levy, our current school excess levy. This is a report straight from our auditor's report. It's in there every year. And there's two sets of columns there. One is the current year, which for us would be fiscal year 23, the year that just ended. And the school excess levy today would be since the inception of this cycle. So it'd be 21, 22, and 23. We still have 2 years left, 24 and 25. So the first column represents 1 year. The second set of columns represents 3 years to date. So as you can see, when we passed the school excess levy back for school in 2020, it was 31.6 million. Again, that's based upon the assessed values from the assessor's office in the county. And at that time, it was bringing in 31.6. Roll forward 3 years later, you can see what we actually brought in 2023 was 43.9 million on that schedule, which is the difference of 12.3 million. At the same time, if you look down below that in the first column, it identifies how the 31.6 was to be used. The first category there is salary supplement and benefits for all school personnel, excluding the superintendent's salary. And again, what that accounts for, what it pays for is there's 60 staff approximately in Berkeley County that are not part of the school aid formula. They're mostly the office staff, IT, finance, HR, and some other categories. We also have 30 professionals that are over the state aid formula that we have to pay for, and approximately 146 service personnel outside the formula that we pay for. In addition to all that we pay for, anytime the state gives a pay raise or changes the PIA, we are to absorb those costs as well for these people that's outside the formula, not in the formula, over the formula, and more than 200 days in their contract. The next category we have is instructional materials, textbooks, and instructional equipment, and that's 3.5 million. Of course, we're spending about 9.2 currently. The other category is community.
You talked about things like we have to, everyone that's over 200 professional,
Correct.
we have to pay that additional money.
Correct.
And do you have those figures broken out, or?
I do not for today's presentation. We can work towards that and give you an idea of who's over 200 days.
Right.
But it's any professional or service personnel that's over 200 days, the local county board is responsible for.
Well, the service,
Services.
the service.
Well, but over 200 days is another FT, it's 1.33 FTEs. And again, once you're over that, we're 146 people over, we'll pay for all.
So we're paying the full salary then.
For the 146, yeah.
Yes.
At a future meeting, could we have like the cost for over 200-day professional, the number of people that we have?
That is going to be difficult to do. So I give you the number of people, but it's difficult to say We are, we have a system, while we have a payroll system in place, it doesn't translate to the general ledger by person, by category. You're either a professional teacher, you're a custodian, a cook, the different professional categories were all lumped into the same object code for salary, so it's very difficult to pull.
But don't you have to know when you have a limitation of state code saying they're only paid for 200, and you have to budget for the extra 61 days?
Well, our budget's based upon the staff, their years of service, what category, their supplement. So all that's put into the budget. The state tells us from the state comps what they're paying for. So what we're paying for is the difference between those two numbers. So I don't have to list the staff that's in these categories. It's
I didn't.
part of the certified list that we look at. When you look at that certified list, it tells you about 10,000, it's now how many days.
Yeah, I know, but I was just wondering. When we're.
I don't look at 3,000 employees at the end of the day individually,
I
look at
know.
the total lump sum.
But we have to know, we have to know how much we're getting from the state and how much. And I know we got a salary difference between what the state gives and everything, but I was just trying to figure out.
And all that data is available in the Department of Education, finance webpage. They're called the comps, and it's a 10-step formula, and each step is identified in there. So you can look at Berkeley County, step one is professionals, and here's how much they had.
So you could go to the State Board of Education's website and. give
Anybody
us
can.
this- Well, but we're asking you to bring us a summary of what we're taking out of the excess levy to pay for these things.
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, thank you.
And then we have our community organization that we support there also. We support the Berkeley County Health Department, Parks and Rec, WVU 4-H, the Extension's Office, and the Public Library. And that's about 313.5, I think is what that is to the total. And then we also use some of the excess or the school excess levy to pay for increased enrollment. Again, Berkeley County historically had increased enrollment. With that comes additional staff requirements. Again, we're talking about over formula. And then we also, again, maintain our buildings that are aging. So in total, our original levy in 2020 called for 31.6. Our current, what we're bringing in is 43.9. What we're spending is 58.7. So about $14 million from other sources other than state aid, other than the excess levy.
Where's the COVID money?
I'm sorry, say again.
Where's the COVID money in all this?
That is not in this.
Okay, so
That's
where we getting,
separate.
where we getting 14 million?
Well, we get it from other sources, so we do have other revenue, like our P-card program, our interest program, other charges for other services. We also get to keep 15% of our current levy. The state keeps 85 out of state aid, we keep the other 15%. So we have other, so we have federal, we have some Medicaid money. So we do have other sources for it. But ESSER is completely a whole different fund. It's not in this general fund, excess levy, school excess levy is only for the general fund.
Yeah, because that's federal.
The COVID money is federal money. Yeah. So with that, and I don't know if Ron wants to talk about this one or not, but again, as you can see, we have more financial needs than the school excess levy covers. Again, you know, for informational purposes, at 98%, between 100% is about another 100,000. We do have some costs that weren't in existence and we never thought about to this level. Back in 2020, the big incident this year, of course, was our cybersecurity issue, school safety measures that we continue to address. And again, anytime the state gives any pay increase or changes to the PI schedule, we pick up that difference for anybody that's not in the state aid formula. So there are a lot of numbers on here to address and consider, but again, this is just informational purposes only.
So let me talk about this slide for just a minute. The information that you have in the one pager, as you saw, the amount that the levy called for, the amount that we actually collected, the amount that we end up having to use, and the fact that we have to, that we're spending more than the excess levy actually covers. I mean, we couldn't make it without it, and get me wrong, that this is good, but it is, we're spending more than this already. Can you go back to the slide that was just up there? And I have been approached by multiple programs and organizations that we work with. One is with us tonight, the library, appreciate her coming tonight. You know, and they're like everybody else wanting to express the need for an increase. But what you see on this slide are things that are coming. We are 100% gonna have to find ways to fund these in Berkeley County Schools, 100%. To the level that we find ways to fund them is gonna depend on this board and the leadership for Berkeley County Schools. For instance, school safety measures. We are already looking at improving the safer school entrances via our bond. We always are looking to improve things from the glass, the doors, the hinges, the intercom systems, all of those kinds of things are maintained by us. You know, we've got some things that we're doing right now as projects in the bond, but after that, it's gonna come out of our, the general fund. We also are talking about adding to our security. We're adding people for our middle schools, and hopefully that is going to grow from 3 to 6. That's the goal as we move forward for people. Our cybersecurity measures. This past year we had the incident. We are still we're still recovering, from all of that. We've got a program that is in place now that was recommended for us for this school year. Looking ahead to stay at that particular level of defense for our technology, for all of the to protect all cyber levels. I guess I don't know what the terminology is for that, but all of our technology. There's different levels for that. The state provides us a minimum level is going to require every county to input the system that they have. However, we had that in place before February, and we still had this incident happen. So they're trying to continue to improve, but I'm not sure that it's at the level that we were targeted basically last year. I believe because of the size of our bond and the news about us and the money that was available in Berkeley County Schools. So it just, if a group is going to target you, I'm not sure that the amount that is, provided is going to be enough. So how much more are we gonna protect our technology with? And then, of course, we're looking at, hopefully changes in PEI or changes in PEIA positively for us, but we all know that it's probably going to go the other way. Salary increases. I expect that those discussions will continue, and I would hope that there will be some changes there, but we have to find ways to fund all of those for all of the positions that are above and beyond the 200 days that Jim had mentioned before. So one option to be able to find over $900,000 to help us put towards things, and it could be earmarked for these types of things. It really doesn't matter, is to increase from 98% to the maximum allowable amount, which a number of counties in the state do that. We had done that before, but it's been a number of years that we've been at 98%, a little bit over 98.02 or something like that, right? So since we have these new things that we know were never talked about before, I thought now would be a good time to talk about, is this when we want to talk to our community about things that we've never had to tackle before. I'm here to tell you, I don't think $900,000 is going to be enough to cover these things, but it would be enough to go to help. So I just wanted the board to think about that. And again, Mr. Murphy reminded you that we are not here to take action tonight, just discussing these options with you. Ms. Long was correct. The 98%, 98 point whatever percent would be a renewal. And you wouldn't have to talk about the addition of these, but these are expenses that are coming. These are going to be added, and we're going to have to find money for these somewhere in the budget in Berkeley County Schools. To what level is going to, again, be up to us. So. You know, do we want to ask our community to help support, and we can put these out there as things that they're supporting with this? You can earmark a certain amount of money for these projects. Do we look, you know, with this 100%, do we also look at the community organizations that we're working with? Those are things that I just wanted this board to be able to think about. And if not, and if we're interested in renewal or not raising that, we just need to know the direction this board wants to go.
Well, if you remember correctly, I brought that up last year, about going back to 100% because it was that. I know it's probably been 15 years.
Yeah, and I provided a note schedule for you guys to look at, which shows you statewide how many counties have a school access levy and what their percentages are. And then 44 out of 55 counties that have one, actually has two school levies. And their percentages are for the different counties. What it would look like in Berkeley County, for instance, this chart kind of does the whole market from $100,000 market value of a house to $1 million market value of the house. The second column is house assessed at the county at 60%. The current rate, the middle column is what we're charging today. So for instance, if you own a $400,000 house, it's assessed at $240, you're paying $1,080 right now here. If we go to the 100% of what's allowed by state code, pay $1,102, which is a $22 change per year for that house. So as you can see, you found where you fall in that category, what it would cost you as a citizen for your personal property tax for your residence to increase the school access levy from 98 to 100%. Again, it'd be the flavor of the board and what they're willing to discuss going forward, but we just want to present the information and give you an idea of what we are.
Yeah.
We definitely have to have an in-depth discussion about that before we make any kind of decision.
Well, we want to send the right message to everyone, but we also need to make sure that everyone is aware that, you know, just like all other businesses and organizations out there, we're incurring expenses now that didn't exist 10, 15, 20 years ago. So.
And then lastly, what's important is the timeline. And obviously tonight we're discussing the possibility of where we are, where we could go. In January, we should give notice to the county clerk's office to give them time. In February, we need to finalize the actual ballot language, what it's going to look like, which categories, how much money is in each category. Get the attorneys to review that. And then March, I think it's about March 4th, will be about 70 days out. And we need to have the final ballot language to the clerk's office. In April, we have to do a legal ad, class 2 legal ad. And then May 14th will be the actual election. And if necessary, or as board chosen, we'd have November 5th as the only other option before this school access levy would expire.
And I think those last two dates are important, especially if we were to consider the possibility of going with the allowable amount of 100%. You do have the drop back date of November 5th to be able to go back and say, okay, we've heard you go back to renewal versus you know, the increase. I think you run the risk if you don't consider that, then you're gonna have to be able to you know, really hope that the 14th passes. Because if it doesn't, if you run it as a renewal on the 14th, what are you gonna give on the 5th?
Okay, so in December, we do not have to have the levy language, we just have to have the intent of running the levy with the May primary. And we'll have to have a resolution at the next meeting, a week from today, to do that. The rates, the details, the breakout of the levy distribution will not be part of that language. We'd have the first meeting in February to finalize that language, have all of January to decide and decide.
I'd want to clarify with the legal about what language has to be in the resolution to pass, because I know the requirement of the page I went over, I don't know the timing of that. If it has to be in December when we do the resolution, or just the fact that we want to run a school excess levy, and then in January come back with the language specific.
I just want to make sure this board's not in a position at the last minute, you have to do this, and we haven't had a chance to discuss it up there, and you're allowing that with this time.
Correct.
So Jim, you'll be able to get that question answered.
Yeah, we can reach out to, the council who helped us with this last time, which is, I think it was Roger Hunter at Bowles Roads.
So you're leading us into the next item, which is budget. All right,
Are there any other questions before we go to the budget on this? Again, this was just to present what we're doing now. You know, and I do want to offer to each of you an example from our library, of what was presented that they would be seeking. And, you know, I want to let you know that I informed them, as I informed all of the organizations I've spoken with, that you know, if we're at the renewal phase and there's not additional monies coming in above and beyond that, we're not in a position to be able to raise the amounts or anything that would be provided to them. If we did consider that 100% that we talked about, that would give you an opportunity to revisit that to see. You know, these are just proposals and requests from her on behalf of the library. But you know, this would be, you would be providing to her organization. You don't have to do any one of these proposals. These are just suggestions on their behalf. So I just want to let you know that those are coming into me. I'm looking at those and I don't feel that in a renewal phase that there's much wiggle room. So just wanted you to know that there's, you know, that organization, at least two others that we're talking about with who will be looking at it.
you have the figures for the existing levy and those numbers are Health Department 28.5, Parks and Rec 112.5, 4868. Where's the library here?
It's right below that, it's 112.5.
Yeah, 112.5 right there. Why are they broken apart? Why aren't they all in there?
There was a requirement that we addressed it with the libraries.
Separate, because some counties, I think, well, Cabell did, Kanawha has a separate levy just for the library. I think they broke theirs out.
And then there was years ago a levy that was much higher for the libraries and all throughout Kanawha County that changed that funding for public libraries.
The WVU 4-H extension, that 68 is, I believe it's a couple different programs, but I have to look back to see.
It is.
Do that.
Yeah, there was a court case that said that those counties that had a local bill that mandated a certain percentage, I think the amount of money the county commission gets would be the same that we at that one time had to charge, but the courts ruled that children of those counties with local bills were in place. We're not being provided equal protection of the law to do that. But I think the court said, you know, that mandated distribution is no longer in effect.
So I just wanted to make you aware that this is where we are now. This is what is being spent. This is transparent as we can be. This was actually provided in a previous document. It's outright.
It's annually in our annual financial statement that I present every September. This is one of the schedules that there's.
So this is just pulled out for us to focus on, but it's provided to you know, it's public knowledge. So again, just want to let you know what we're doing now, where it looks like we would go, what the proposal could be. You know, I actually was, in my figuring, I was wrong. It's hard for me to say, but I was wrong. I thought that our that if we went 100%, that I thought if we went 100%, each of the percentages would take us up about $1 million, but I was wrong. It would only take us up about $500,000. So I thought we'd be closer to 2. Instead, we're close to 1 million on that. But anyway, that's how that money could be utilized by Berkeley County Schools and the organizations we support. So that is it for the excess levy, unless you have questions.
Questions? Okay, but we can expect a general document, at the next board meeting. Saying that we're going to do that first step in December,
To run an excess levy.
run an excess limit, without any details of how it's distributed.
I will clarify that with legal, that can be the resolution only that would run without what we're running.
Yeah, because I don't want the board to walk in and say, you gotta vote on this.
Correct.
All right, thank you, Mr. Butts. You're part B now.
So part B is our fiscal year 23 budget calendar. If you recall, last year we started this process in February. It was indicated to me that was not adequate time for the parties involved to get budget requests in. So here we are in December. So this calendar, it kind of gives you an idea. These are highlight overview. Obviously, there's work that we're going to do as a school board administration in between these dates, but these are the target dates of things we must hit along the way. Obviously, January 10th, the 60-day session convenes. March 3rd, we get the county assessor's letter giving us the valuations of the property in Berkeley County that we will then base our current levy, our excess levy, and our bond rates on. March 9th, the 60-day regular session will end. March 18th, we have to have a statutory meeting to again determine those levy rates, which we do every year, and then we reconvene that meeting again on April 16th. I think it's the third Tuesday. We're required to reconvene that meeting. In between that, around March 22nd, give or take, Bev will release their projected state aid. At that time, we know what our revenue base will be to complete the budget. Internally, we would have had our staffing meetings with all the principals and reviewed budget requests provided by the staff. I put in there, obviously, the board's determined a work session, but at some point we need to nail down what it is we actually want to present, what we're comfortable with as far as reserve or use of reserves, and what kind of programs we are comfortable running given the budget impact on each of those programs. May 6th would be the first meeting in May where we actually have to at least review a preliminary budget, because I then need to put that in the class 2 legal aid as well. We come back on May 20th for the public hearing. At that point, we'd hear any comments from the public. This board would approve that budget and we would send it to the state pending their approval. We have to have that to the state by May 30th, and usually by the end of June, they let us know whether they've approved our budget as it stands. So that's the timeline of where we are and what we need to hit. These are the funds, again, that we normally hit. The one we're really concerned with is the general operating budget, Fund 11. The other stuff kind of flows through. The Fund 71 is the last one of a full-blown personnel being paid out of ESSER. We will have some money spent for the summer credit recovery program and maybe a few other miscellaneous items over the summer, but that grant ends September 30, 24th. There will not be any contracted employees paid out of ESSER fund after July 1.
So that balance will be zero? Or do we have,
Other than this, what the cost to run the summer credit and a few other items we're gonna have to wrap up with, but there won't be any people contracts paid out of that program.
Will we have a list of positions? I don't want to get down to personnel. But will we have a list of the people that are being funded out of Fund 70?
Yeah, and we worked on that internally, and there's two categories. There's people that are paid out of ESSER, and then there's people paid and hired from ESSER. So when ESSER, the COVID money first came out, we were allowed to put any existing employee in there as retaining that employee. And then we had some new positions that were created and paid for through the ESSER fund. You know, some schools got additional staff to help support that school. So those are the areas that we're looking at and addressing now. Our debt services fund 21, again, that's our bonds. We have one bond that's expiring in June of 25 next fiscal year. And then we have the new bond that were just passed. Now, if you recall, when we passed them this first year, we didn't know what coupon rate we were selling, what the impact was going to be for the principal and interest. Next year, we will know that. There's the numbers for that. So the new rates, the new bond rates that are levy rates that we propose will be accurate based upon what we're currently required to pay the debt with each year in May and November. This is our Fund 61. These are just the type of programs programs that we run that are restricted, again, this is just for informational purposes tonight, but this is stuff that's already paid for out of Fund 61. And pointing out that like the step 7 mentoring, some of the people in our ESSER fund may end up in this category. To continue supporting instructional needs of our district.
Can I ask you a question?
Mhm.
Because it's professional service, their development fund, that money's to be carried over every year. Do we spend it all on those services, or do we spend it for other things?
Well, it has to be spent on professional development, that's on, these two items here are actually carved out in this 10-step state aid formula, it can only be spent on those items. We have additional, professional development outside of this in Fund 11. But this money has to be spent for professional and for service. It's formula driven in the state code, and our state aid formula tells us how much is in each category. There's a committee that approves those professional development.
Yeah, I know all about that, but I also know that the county will spend it on whatever they want to spend it
No,
on.
you can't, it's restricted.
And if there was a surplus over at the end of the year in the general fund.
That's
so-
not a true statement. Not in this county.
No, I know, no, I'm not saying this county, but I know it occurred. I know it occurred. But I work with the legislature to make sure that didn't occur.
Well, I only control Berkeley County,
Now,
and in
I
Berkeley County,
just
we
want to
don't,
make sure that,
it doesn't. Everything's restricted, is spent on the restricted purpose and the restricted time. When either one is expiring, like if we're getting close to, we ask the state to extend the obligation period with. We also are now required to file what's called a sworn statement at the end of each cycle of these that said we spent the money for the intended purpose and the intended time.
But one of the, she caused me to think of another related question, say on profession. If you send a teacher to a national conference, or you send a office professional to a national conference, you're meeting the letter of the law, correct?
Well, I'm not part of that process, that's instruction, and
Okay,
then they
but-
have a process, an application review process for that.
But my point is that sometimes I think people go to national conferences. That perhaps somebody in the trenches would benefit more going to that.
Well, I think they have policies on how often you can go, I don't think you
No,
go.
I'm not trying to control the administration that goes, I'm just saying that who would benefit more, a teacher that's doing that work every day, who goes to this?
I think this is for teachers, is it not?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay, I'm
we have
just,
a staff development council, and they determined that council was made up of teachers. And Lasky is the facilitator, but they determine. They apply for it and they determine who goes to what conference and when.
yeah, I just didn't, I.
This is the required staff development.
No,
There's other monies that go to staff development too.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but it's a Murphy's Law on profession, not service. But I got the law passed because we couldn't get any money for staff development in Berkeley County, so I was in the House. Went down and just got a certain percentage of certain amount of professional money, 0.5% or 4%, I forget what the code says. And got it in there, and then Ken Legg came along later on, he said, well, it's good enough for them, it's good enough for my people. So he got it off of service, but I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure that,
this section is just for what's there,
yeah, it's just, I just
and
want
that's
to make
just
sure
for teachers.
rank and file people are getting out there.
Yes.
Thank you.
This is our special revenue, which is mostly our federal funding and our child nutrition program falls under there. These are the typical programs that we get year after year, Title 1, 2, 3, 4, special ed, IDA, preschool, and adolescents, the HIDA, which is some of our encouraging someone in the community, and then our adult community ed programs through KenPAC, and then again, our child nutrition program. Something to keep in mind, and I'll talk about later, is, we haven't changed pricing for meals since 2017 for child nutrition, as you all know. In your daily food bill or weekly grocery bill, food is going up a lot. So it's the kids.
It would only be the people who are paying for the lunches. Now, what about the schools where everybody's in the school gets free lunch?
That's a federal reimbursement based upon the number of meals served.
And we can't raise the amount they're gonna give us, they just tell us what they're gonna give us.
We always adjust our budget for what the current federal rates are, correct?
aren't we in the minus column on lunches?
When you say the minus column, what do you mean?
Oh, I mean, not the minus, are we in the negative?
Well, we always support child nutrition through the general fund. Typically before COVID is roughly 4 to 5 million. In COVID, they got extra funding as well. They got supply chain funding. During that time, every child ate for free and was reimbursed at the federal rate. That is no longer the case for us. So we will be back, including this year that we're in right now, fiscal year 24. We will be contributing to child nutrition.
Which we did before COVID.
Absolutely,
Yes.
yes.
That's what, that was my.
But we're contributing more proportionally because we have not increased any meal prices since 2017. So the fund that we're really concerned with is our general fund. That's what we, the board administration, control. What I think is important to point out here on this slide, this is our general fund balance. And if you look at everything to the left of the box, that is pre-COVID. So as you can see there, from 2016, 17, 18, 19, we were spending more money than we were bringing in on an annual basis. 2020 hits, COVID hits, federal funding, and you see we built our reserves back up. What I'm trying to express to everyone is that funding is ending. And unless we change our operations, we'll be back to the 2016, 17, 18, 19. But again, as Ron pointed out, we have expenses we didn't have before. Obviously, COVID funded a lot of other expenses that we would normally either A, have to have done out of the operating fund or not provided that type of program at all. So I think it's important to know what it shows there. We have about 36 million in reserves at the end of 23. But again, we're going to schools, staff those schools. We got 70 people roughly coming back from COVID funding back into the general fund at some level. So we do have expenses there that we need to address. Looking forward, we'll prepare our budget.
In your annual financial statement.
Yep.
Page 5.
Well, I don't have that in front of me, so go ahead.
Go ahead, I'll look for my copy. But I have 2 copies here, but there's a sentence there, and I think there are reservations here. I mean, I see here for 2023 on this slide, you have 36,295,863.
That's general fund only.
General fund, okay, now here, your patience, please, with me. There's a sentence here, it says approximately, which is 16% of the total general fund.
Correct.
It's 34, okay?
34 unassigned.
Okay, I have unreserved.
Unreserved, right. So
Okay.
part of this 36 million, we had off the top of my head, I don't have the things in front of me. Probably, and there is a schedule in that report you're looking at, that's going to show encumbrances. Encumbrances were probably $1.some million in there. We have prepaid room insurance, or actually prepaid workers' comp insurance that comes off of there. So you got to look at the whole picture, not just one
I
side.
know, because it says here, this amount of money is for at the board's discretion.
That is, yes. That's why it's different than this, because this is what the board's already identified in encumbrances. for
Okay, so
POs.
that 36 is not part of this 34.
Yeah, that 34 is part of that 36.
So, okay, that's what I was worried about. I thought, we'll be there, we'll have a good time here.
No, well, what I want to say to that is, in fiscal year 23, if you look here, we went up not quite $8 million between 22 and 23 in our reserves. Our spending out of ESSER money alone for just salaries and benefits that year, 9.6 million. So if we were to absorb 9.6 million, we're already behind before we do anything else that we talk about.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure everybody's on the same page. Again, while that's what's in the bank today, it wasn't general operations that got us there, it was COVID money that got us there.
Yeah, well, I just
And we were about ready to go back to general operations.
I was sitting there saying, so the board does not have all this discretionary money that this board says we do.
Well, by law it is. Doesn't mean it's proven. But by law, it is discretionary, it is unassigned, general revenue in the system.
I will keep asking this question to understand.
You can keep asking it and I'll
I
keep answering
know,
it.
I know. Okay, thank you.
The next schedule, again, this is our enrollment, and as you can see, 22, 23, 24, we have kind of flattened out a little bit. So what we used to have is huge growth numbers we no longer have. With growth, when you have a growth county, you get increased enrollment dollars, and you also get increased bus replacement dollars. That will not be happening on the trend we're on right now, unless things pick up again. So again, we have another issue. Now we have a potential change in our revenue coming in. And if we have a change in our revenue, we should have a change in our expenses to match that.
Well, it's just a slight change. But I know it's slight
But
to
in the
me, but
state of
it-
West Virginia, one declined student is one, it's not a growth county anymore. So you can have a growth county get a half FTE enrollment in, and they're considered a growth county.
you don't know that because I remember Putnam County talking how much it growth that they were ahead of us. Well, they got one student that year, which made them a growth county.
Yes.
Well, what? Is this because of the alternative schools being offered? Do we
I
have?
think it's a combination of everything. If you were at the legislative forum on Friday, through the chamber, Patricia Rucker did, I don't say boast, but was very happy with the numbers that are in the charter schools, the Hope Scholarship, homebound, any alternative education process, and then also, I think some of our decline was the numbers coming in for the pre-K. These numbers here is what the state reimburses that for the professional service and professional support personnel. It's based upon 1,000 students, so every 1,000 full-time equivalent students, this is what we get. If you want to notice, what I want to point out on the service, that 50.65, that includes the second grade classroom aides that are coming in 25.
I thought,
We don't hire them.
yeah, I thought pretty glad that they were gonna take a look at that.
Well, this is where we're today.
Yeah.
And then lastly, these are our challenges we're putting together in the budget. Of everything we talked about today, these are the things that we need to consider. I don't know if I need to go through everyone. You guys can read those, but the big ones are ESSER. We have a huge math textbook adoption. We have cybersecurity. Our room went up last year. It's going to go up this year. We're not sure. We have contracted services to the level we never had before. Transportation fees offering huge dollars to us that weren't here just even a few years ago at that level that they are today. So, with that all said, we got a big challenge ahead of us, and just to make sure everybody's aware. And I think I spoke to Mr. Murphy the other day. I said, if we come with the price, we better come with a way to pay for it. We just don't have room to do that.
And I called the board members up, and if you had any items, is that? Wait till,
I'm gonna wait.
okay.
Yeah, they don't have to be in this type of form. I mean, you talk to Superintendent Stevens, get him what it is you want.
Collect
Deal with it.
It doesn't have to be formal. Really what we want to be able to do is to make sure that we have funding available. I agree, last year, April was a little bit late, but that's when things have been done before.
Well, the other issue you have is you don't have how much money you're getting for March 22nd.
Yeah,
So it's hard to budget.
we need to rank them.
Correct.
Yeah, so the budget is, always feels like it's rushed at the end of the year, because you
Yeah.
don't have that number until.
We get preliminary numbers, but they're not always the final. So you gotta be careful how much you dig into. But again, most of our staffing, which is around 75% is personnel. And we base our personnel based upon the enrollment of a child sitting in that seat in that school. So that's where the majority of it comes from. And of course, obviously, special ed looks at each case that they have, each IEP, to determine staffing at that level. So once you nail down the staffing, there's not a whole lot of meat left on the bone for us to play with. Because you got utilities that aren't really gonna, that we don't have any control over. Transportation costs and meal, I mean, those are our biggest categories outside of personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Rhodes. Any question, Mr. Rhodes?
That's it.
Okay, I think they're at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, very exciting.
Okay, do I have a motion to?
Second.
Okay, motion to made by Mr. Wright, seconded by Dr. Power. Okay, discussion on the motion. All those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye. Thursday. Ayes have it, we are adjourned.